Since the very beginning of Minecraft, people have always wondered, what's the biggest cave that can naturally generate? And over the years, many players have claimed to have found the largest one. But despite that, there was still no single biggest cave that had ever been verified. That was until May 2025, when a seed finding expert by the name of Nomis discovered this seed, where if you travel to this location, you'll find the biggest cave in all of Minecraft. As you enter, you'll come across an ecosystem of lush caves, as well as an open area that stretches far into the distance. But that's just the beginning, because there's also a giant clearing that reveals several different layers to this cave. The top layer is the safest, with greenery and these mysterious rock formations. There's even an area where a mineshaft is so dense that it looks like a treehouse. But as you go deeper, you'll find hanging mineshafts, deep slate, and rivers of flowing lava. This place straight up feels like the underworld rather than a Minecraft seed. And the unusual amount of lava is something you'd only see in the Nether. Now that we've seen the biggest cave ever, let's take a look at some more rare anomalies in Minecraft. And I hope you're ready, because this time we're looking at some of the rarest and most unbelievable discoveries ever made. When mining gravel, you have a 90% chance of getting the gravel block and a 10% chance of getting flint. However, not many people know that gravel drops are actually seed dependent, meaning you'll always get the same drops on the same seed. So in September of 2025, a group of seed finders came together to find the seeds with the rarest gravel drops in Minecraft. They called this the Gravel Project. Now this may sound weird, but believe it or not, through this project they discovered some of the rarest occurrences in all of Minecraft. One of the team members, called masterwyatt, used the group's code to scan quadrillions of seeds for the rarest gravel, until he found this one. On this seed, the first 15 gravel you break will all drop flint in a row. This may seem unimpressive, but because it gets exponentially rarer to keep getting flint, this happening is actually a 1 in a quadrillion chance, meaning you're 1,000 times more likely to find a naturally completed end portal than for gravel to drop 15 flint in a row. But believe it or not, this doesn't even come close to how rare their second find was, because masterwyatt also searched for the opposite of this, to find the seed with the most gravel you can break without getting a flint, until he found this seed, where the first 352 gravel will break without dropping any flint. For a visual, this is how much gravel you'd need to break before you get 1 flint on this seed. Keep in mind, usually you'd only need to break around 10 gravel to get 1 flint, making this seed a speedrunner's nightmare. But there's only a 1 in 13 quadrillion chance of this happening. You're about 13,000 times more likely to find a completed end portal than to get this gravel RNG. You're even more likely to win the lottery back to back than find this on your own. Now here's an interesting graph made by one of the team members called pseudo-gravity. This is the amount of seeds the group would need to search to get the theoretical rarest gravel drops. If they searched every Minecraft seed, statistically it's possible to get up to 19 or even 20 flint in a row. And for gravel, it's possible to find a seed where up to 400 or even 450 gravel can break without getting a single flint. But can you imagine for a second going back to 2010 and telling Notch that people would be using advanced hardware and code to search for gravel drops in Minecraft 15 years later? He'd probably quit development right then and there. But anyway, now the group is looking for even more loot drops, such as the most dead bushes that can be broken without getting a stick, with the current record being 30 bushes, found by xvoid. So I'll keep you all updated on any new discoveries that are made. A few years ago, I'd heard about a certain seed on Bedrock Edition with a very strange phenomenon. I didn't remember much of the details, but I recently went on a hunt to try and track the seed down again. And after scouring the internet, I finally came across the obscure bug report that was posted back in August of 2022. The report said that if you enter this seed and try to put an axolotl in an empty bucket, something very weird happens. So here's a random world seed, and you can see what happens when you normally put an axolotl in a bucket. As you can see, by right-clicking it with a full water bucket, it goes inside the bucket, which is normal. But if I right-click it with an empty bucket, nothing will happen, which is also normal. However, if you load in this specific world seed and right-click an axolotl with an empty bucket, the axolotl completely disappears, as if it's been sent to the Shadow Realm. And if you do this, there's no way to retrieve the axolotl, so it's gone forever. This phenomenon is very unknown, and the only mention of it I could find was from a YouTube short posted last year. What's even stranger is that when I tried to enter the bug report for more details, the page just wouldn't load. So it's a mystery as to why axolotls disappear on this specific seed. And adding on the fact that this has been in the game for over 3 years makes it one of the strangest and most unusual anomalies ever found. About a month ago, I received a Discord message from the legendary seed finder named Matt, who's found some insane things in Minecraft over the years, such as the ocean monument with the most sponges that we looked at in the previous video. This time, Matt told me about a project that he and several others were working on back in 2021, and despite the age of this project, it's something that's never been showcased before on YouTube. What the group was looking for were villages intersecting with exposed strongholds, but not on modern versions. They were searching for this on update 1.7, which was released all the way back in 2013. This version is so ancient that barely any seed finds have ever taken place on it, and to even find such an occurrence required simulating Minecraft's world generation to search through countless worlds. The only way to do that was with advanced coding knowledge, and luckily Matt is a coding expert, and so after writing the code, he gave it to 12 volunteers to run on their computers. The group scanned countless worlds, and in total they made a list of 1 million seeds where strongholds could potentially generate near the surface. And out of that seed list, Matt showed me 2 of the best seeds they found. The first is this one, which has a stronghold intersecting with a desert village, and you can already tell some weird things are going on here. For example, this cactus somehow generated on a floating stone brick. There's also an exposed library where you'll find some sort of invisible barrier blocks, which are actually floating ladders, which completely disappear if you look at them from the back. Now the rest of this village is pretty small, with only 2 houses, but you'll also find the end portal right on the surface, which is a very rare occurrence. But let's move on to the second seed, which has a plains village right on top of an exposed stronghold. Luckily, this one's a decently sized village, and it even has a blacksmith. Walking around here, it feels like this village was founded on the ruins of an ancient civilization, with even the villagers wandering through the stronghold. Now, this is where the anomaly would end. However, as I was working on this video, a mysterious seed finder by the name of Keima joined my Discord server and showed me something even more interesting. Now, you might remember Keima from a while ago as the same person who found the first exposed stronghold back in version 1.0. But this time, Keima found something even more impressive. What he showed me was a stronghold intersecting with a village, not on version 1.7, but on 1.0, released back in 2011. If you travel here, you'll find that some of the houses have been completely overwritten by the library room, and the rest of the stronghold is almost completely above ground. A fun fact about this village is that the blacksmith doesn't even have a chest, because this version is so old that blacksmith chests weren't even added to the game yet. And the same goes with villager trading. The atmosphere of this location is very mysterious because of the old textures and fog. Keep in mind, what was considered rare back in 2011 were just seeds with mountains or gravel falling. So imagine you went back in time and showed this seed to the community. It would have created some creepypasta or urban legend around this village. However, the way Keima found this is interesting as well, because this is actually a sister seed to one of the 1.7 seeds found by Matt and his team. And if you're wondering what a sister seed is, it's basically a seed with similar structure placements to another seed. But Keima showed me one more seed, which in my opinion is the most interesting of all. This one is directly from Matt's seed list. However, it's unique from the rest, because believe it or not, the moment you spawn in this world, you'll be facing directly inside the end portal room. Can you imagine getting this as a first spawn point? It would feel like some sort of tutorial level where you learn about the end portal before you get into the real game, and eventually you'd be led back here when you get the Eyes of Ender. But this seed gets even crazier because of the random spawn radius, which makes it possible to spawn right inside the Stronghold library as well. Now there's one more thing about this occurrence which is worth mentioning. Keima told me that these surface strongholds could hold the key to finding one of the rarest theoretical anomalies in Minecraft, which is a naturally spawning iron golem pre 1.14. Now we all know that an iron golem spawns in every village, but before the 1.14 update, iron golems didn't naturally spawn, as you either had to build them by hand or you needed 21 doors in the same location for one to spawn, which is how iron farms worked. However, if you found a village big enough to have 21 doors, then it was possible to find one naturally. But the problem was that most villager houses actually didn't have doors doors back then, meaning it was almost impossible for a village to naturally generate with enough doors to spawn a golem. However, some rooms and strongholds can actually generate with wooden doors, making them add up towards the door count. So if a natural iron golem is possible pre 1.14, you'd need a large village generating on top of an exposed stronghold with many wooden doors. However, even Keima has doubts that any of the 1 million seeds Matt found can generate an iron golem. In fact, the only confirmed sighting of a natural iron golem pre 1.14 happened in June 2025, where a Reddit user called OKBudget found one in a 1.7 superflat world. And this was only possible because superflat villages are much bigger than normal villages. In June 2025, a Discord user by the name of SirCat posted an image to the famous seed finding server Minecraft at Home, where he showed a ruined portal in a very strange location, littered with cobblestone. It looked as if the landscape had somehow been destroyed, but the weirdest thing is that for some reason, this ruined portal has 3 chests, when ruined portals can only generate with 1 chest each. What's even weirder is that SirCat posted the caption, "Which chest is real?" So there's definitely something abnormal going on here. When I first saw this, it looked like this location was custom built by a player, or maybe even a griefed area in an anarchy server with all the cobblestone everywhere. However, since SirCat sent a world seed, I decided to try it and investigate. When logging onto the world, I was surprised to see that this was actually real. But you might be wondering, how is this even possible? Well, the fact that there's a naturally generated piston here means this can only be one thing. This area used to have a jungle temple, which was then overwritten by a giant ruined portal. This is how 3 chests generated, as 2 of them are from the temple, and 1 from the ruined portal. I also did some more research to see if this had ever been found before, and there have been occasional sightings of this occurrence in the past, but to my knowledge, this is the only instance of such a large section of the temple being destroyed. Legacy Edition was a version of Minecraft on various consoles from 2012 to 2019, later being replaced by Bedrock Edition. Now, you may have noticed that we've never actually talked about any anomalies on this version, and there's a good reason for that, because back then the majority of the player base were little kids who didn't care about seed finding. Also, many people didn't know if something was rare or not, and it wasn't easy for them to record and post seeds from their consoles to the internet. This means that most rare seeds on Legacy Edition have been lost to time. However, I recently went down a rabbit hole to uncover if by some chance there were any rare occurrences that were documented on this version. And believe it or not, there was only one instance of people doing a seed hunt on Legacy Edition. I came across an obscure YouTube video posted back in June 2021 by Legacy Edition speedrunner known as Utter Evergreen, who wanted to find a seed that would allow him to beat the game as fast as possible. So he ran a search to find a naturally activated end portal on Legacy Edition. Now, a 12-eye portal wouldn't be that crazy on Java, because even though it's a 1 in a trillion chance, so many 12 eyes have already been found that they're no longer considered that impressive. However, it's a completely different story on Legacy Edition, because back in the day, most people didn't even think it was possible for a 12-eye portal to exist. To find this, Utter Evergreen teamed up with a legendary seed finder CrackedMagnet, as well as fellow Legacy Edition speedrunner BarketIsBad. This trio worked together throughout 2021 until they finally discovered this seed, where if you follow the Eyes of Ender, you'll find this stronghold with the first ever 12-eye portal in Legacy Edition. After their first successful find, they continued searching for more because they wanted even faster speedruns. And during their search, they found some other strange strongholds, such as the one on this seed, which only has 2/3 of the portal activated because of a chunk border, and also this seed, which only has 1/3 of the portal activated. In total, during their seed hunt, they managed to find 12 seeds with completed end portals on Legacy Edition. And with these seeds, Utter Evergreen managed to speedrun the game in under 1 minute and 30 seconds. And he also managed to get another world record of the quickest time to enter the end in under 4 seconds, because one of the seeds he found spawns you right on top of an exposed stronghold with a 12-eye portal. Believe it or not, this is actually the fastest time on any edition that anyone has entered the end. So it's pretty insane that this happened on Legacy Edition. For comparison, on Java, the fastest time to enter the end is 13 seconds. So this is over 3 times faster than that. It's also impressive that they even managed to do a seed hunt on Legacy Edition in the first place, as this was already a dead version by the time they were looking for these portals. What's even more insane is that no one else has ever talked about this before on YouTube, and the only way I even found these seeds was through an obscure Discord server from 2021. Also, if you try these, keep in mind they only work for Xbox 360 and Xbox One, because of some differences in world generation between the other consoles. Now, other than these 12-eye portals, I searched through Reddit and was able to find one more anomaly in Legacy Edition. This one was found surprisingly recently, in February 2025, by a Reddit user called Legal Dirt. If you enter this seed, you'll find yourself in a dark forest, and behind you is a mansion. But by taking a closer look, you'll realize that this isn't just any ordinary mansion, because for some reason, two mansions have completely merged into each other to create a single giant mansion. This is so rare that it can't even happen on Bug Rock Edition, which is known for weird structure generation, since mansions need to be at least 336 blocks away from each other to generate. But on Legacy Edition, there was no limit. But this anomaly gets even more weird, because if you load this seed several times, there's a chance for strange things to happen, such as the mansions becoming corrupted. And the first time I loaded this seed, there was actually a third mansion as well, but sadly I didn't save the world file. So who knows what's really going on here? Maybe Herobrine was never removed from this version after all. In previous videos, we've already talked about the biggest mushroom island, as well as the biggest ocean ever found in Minecraft. But what about the rest of the biggest biomes? Well, since biome sizes are random, it means there are seeds out there with the largest of each one, and luckily a few seed finders decided to come together to look for them. So how about we start with the largest cherry grove? This biome usually generates on the lower sides of mountains, as well as on high plateaus. However, one thing about cherry groves is that they're usually pretty small. But in August 2025, the seed finder Show-Me7 discovered this seed, which is the largest one ever, with a cherry grove over 4 million blocks in area. And yes, this is on large biomes, but even so, it's still unheard of for this biome to be so big, since it's only supposed to generate in small patches. Now let's move on and take a look at the biggest beach in all of Minecraft. Similar to the cherry grove, beaches are biomes that are usually pretty small, because they're located on coastlines. However, in July 2025, Show-Me7 also discovered the seed with the biggest beach, and this one isn't on large biomes, but you can still see that it stretches out in all directions, with huge areas of sand everywhere. And by going up into the sky, we can see this giant beach generated because of all the rivers and small oceans that meet at this location. And while this technically isn't a single connected biome, it's still insane that it even grew to this size. Now, other than those biomes, Show-Me7 also searched for the biggest bamboo jungle. This biome is a rare variant of the normal jungle, which also means it's supposed to generate in small areas. But as we make our way across this seed, you'll notice that it seems to never end. For a bamboo jungle to be this big is an unheard of occurrence. And all I can say is the pandas must be eating pretty well around here. So far, the previous biomes have been pretty safe, but let's take a look at a biome you probably wouldn't want to find yourself in, being the largest pale garden in Minecraft. A common complaint people have with this biome is that it's too small and uncommon. However, of course, Show-Me7 found this seed, which spawns you inside the biggest pale garden in Minecraft. And this is also a good seed if you want a challenge to survive here as long as possible. But now, let's go back to the biggest mushroom island, because since last time, there's been some new developments. If you didn't know, over the past few months, there's been an arms race between seed finders to find the largest mushroom island in Minecraft. And since the last video, the great seed finder Andrew has reclaimed the record on both small and large biomes, with the current record on large biomes being an 131 million block mushroom island. However, on small biomes, something very strange happened. Here you can see the spreadsheet for the largest mushroom islands, and they go up pretty steadily in size. But for some reason, from the second biggest to the first, there's an over 1 million block size difference. The search completely skipped the 8 million block range and went straight from a 7.9 million block island to a 9.2 million block island. Keep in mind, even with such advanced seed finding programs, such a big jump is unheard of, making this a very rare anomaly even within this search. And according to seed finders, the equivalent of this on large biomes would be an 147 million block island. It's unknown whether a bigger one than this even exists somewhere out there, but I'll keep you all updated on anything that happens. For as long as pillagers have been in the game, they've always terrorized villages, and sadly it's not possible for villagers to defend themselves without an iron golem. However, in September 2025, a Reddit user by the name of Hamsis AOC recently came across a seed where the villagers finally got the revenge. Now when you travel here, you'll find a pillager outpost right in the middle of this village, and usually that would be bad, but by going into this villager's house, you'll realize that the villagers somehow managed to trap a pillager in its own cage, kidnapping him inside this guy's house. This is just such a weird occurrence to see. And fun fact, the amount of pillagers in this cage is completely random every time you enter the seed. The first time this was found, there were actually a bunch of trapped pillagers. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend attacking this village, since this crazy guy might try and trap you alongside the pillagers. In the last video, we saw some very rare and inappropriate world generation, such as the village that looked like New York, as well as the forbidden bamboo. However, it turns out the seed finder Nomis recently discovered some more occurrences like this, such as if you go to this seed, you'll find a forbidden villager house that looks like an upside down T. So yeah, I don't know what kind of freaky villager lives here, but I really don't want to find out. Now after finding this villager house, Nomis found yet another seed with an upside down T, this time made from the landscape itself. Keep in mind that Nomis is the same person who found the largest cave in Minecraft, so it's good to know he's putting his seed finding skills to good use by finding rare things like this. And also the seed finder Keima found a forbidden seed like this as well, so it looks like a new era of seed finding is upon us. Over the years, players have found seeds with the tallest plant life in Minecraft, from the 24 block tall cactus to the tallest grass in the game. But in May 2025, a Discord user by the name of Arsenic Monosulfide finally came across the tallest recorded dead bush. This probably sounds ridiculous, because obviously dead bushes can only grow to 1 block heights, right? Well, somehow on this seed right at spawn, you'll find this strange occurrence where a dead bush managed to generate on top of another dead bush. This is actually so rare that there's never been another sighting of this happening before. And this discovery marks the 3rd tallest plant life that can be found in Minecraft. And now the only one still to be found is the tallest sugarcane, which is so rare that it's considered the final frontier of tall plant life in Minecraft. But now going back to dead bushes, we all know they spawn randomly throughout desert biomes. However, in June 2021, a deleted Reddit user discovered a location where 5 dead bushes somehow generated together in a row. This is the longest line of dead bushes ever found, and it's unknown just how rare this is, but right now it's one of a kind. So it would be interesting if seed finders could find even bigger rows. Just imagine a desert that only has one long line of dead bushes. It would honestly be kind of creepy. Copper golems can be made pretty easily if you place a carved pumpkin on top of a copper block. But is it possible for a natural copper golem to exist? Meaning a copper golem that spawns without any player intervention. Now this may sound impossible, however in the past you may remember the rare occurrence of a natural snow golem, which had a 1 in 5 trillion chance of spawning if a carved pumpkin generated next to 2 snow blocks. So then what if a carved pumpkin happened to generate inside a trial chamber, which is full of copper blocks? Well, it's almost impossible for this to happen, because first of all, pumpkins are no longer pre-carved, and there's no way for a pumpkin patch to even generate inside a trial chamber in the first place. However, despite these near impossible odds, the legendary seed finder M33 Galaxy was on a quest to find this. He realized that the only way he could get carved pumpkins to generate in a trial chamber was by using a pillager outpost, scarecrows. But remember that for this to generate in the perfect position inside a trial chamber is incomprehensibly rare. And throughout September, M33 Galaxy ran searches to find this occurrence. And after going through countless seeds, he found this one, where on update 1.21.9, 2 scarecrows generated only 2 blocks higher than the copper. However, another seed finder named Xime pointed out that on 1.21.1, this seed actually generates one of the pumpkins in the perfect position to spawn a copper golem. However, copper golems weren't added in this version, so he tried loading the seed on 1.21.1 and then updating it to 1.21.9. but sadly the copper golem still didn't spawn. And further tests by M33 Galaxy proved that even on super flat worlds of copper blocks and carved pumpkins, it's not possible for world generation to spawn a copper golem. So you may think this means that it can't happen. However, it's still possible. The only way for a copper golem to generate without any player intervention is if an enderman picks up the pumpkin and places it back down. So this seed technically can still spawn a copper golem, but it's just way more rare. And honestly, it's pretty wholesome seeing an enderman build a golem. Something you may have noticed about Minecraft is that strongholds have stayed the exact same since the very first update. This is why they look so ancient compared to everything else. But what if I told you that there's a seed where the stronghold finally got an update? In September of 2025, the Discord user SirCat discovered an interesting location on this seed. The moment you walk into the portal room, you'll find pillars of deep slate bricks and ladders on all sides, not only in the entrance but perfectly aligned with the portal as well. And it looks like even the roof received an upgrade as well. As for how this even happened, well, an ancient city managed to perfectly merge with this stronghold, creating the appearance of a new hybrid structure. And despite the rest of this stronghold looking pretty destroyed, this portal room is so different from normal that it doesn't even look like natural world generation. But since Mojang hasn't updated strongholds, it looks like Minecraft's own world generation is starting to take it upon itself to do it for them. In August 2025, I received a message from a Discord user named Infinity Sword of Diamond, who claimed to have found a bastion remnant that generated in an illegal location. Now, if you didn't know, bastions have one place they can't generate in the Nether, and that's inside the Basalt Delta's biome. However, Infinity Sword said that he managed to find one fully inside this biome. Now, this was a bold claim, but Infinity Sword explained how this could happen. He told me he used a well-known seed finding program called QBiomes Viewer to find microbiomes surrounded by basalt deltas, and it's possible for these tiny biomes to generate bastions on them. To make it look like the bastion generated fully inside the basalt deltas, Infinity Sword then provided a video for proof of his find. And not only was this true, but he managed to find every single type of bastion generating inside basalt deltas. Now, something interesting about this is that these microbiomes are so small that the fog color barely changes when you go inside. I'm not even joking when I say this Nether Wastes biome is only a few blocks wide. As for how rare this is, Infinity Sword says that by using the seed finding program, only 10 out of 551 million seeds met the conditions for this to happen within the spawn area. And this would be the end of this anomaly. However, as I was working on this video, another seed finder by the name of Arch sent a seed to my Discord server showing an even more rare occurrence with bastions. This seed has 4 bastions all within 100 blocks of each other. And what's even crazier is that these are all 4 of the bastion types, which is insane to find within such a short distance of each other. The chance of this happening is unknown, but both finds by these 2 seed finders are incredibly rare anomalies. Trial ruins are structures that generate underground in forest biomes. However, if you're randomly exploring your world without looking for them, then there's a chance you could travel thousands of blocks and never find any while playing. That's because only a small section of the structure ever generates above ground, meaning it's very easy to overlook. And honestly, this structure isn't all that interesting anyway. However, earlier this month, a Discord user by the name of Fraser posted an image on my server where he came across a trial ruin in a very unusual position. For some reason, this one generated in a ravine, with the majority of it being exposed. Something like this happening is incredibly rare. Believe it or not, only a few sightings of exposed trial ruins have ever been recorded, with most of them being on snapshots. So the fact that this works on a full release makes it all the more interesting. What I love about this is that it actually feels like it's some sort of fresh structure. And I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like it would be awesome if these could generate more exposed like this. In August 2024, a seed finder by the name of Good Chemical came across one of the most unusual strongholds in all of Minecraft. Now the first thing you'll immediately notice is that there's a mineshaft intersecting with it, which is pretty cool, but overall not that rare. However, this goes from a 0 to 100 very quickly once we enter the portal room, because it turns out that a spider spawner generated here and overwrote half the end portal. What's insane about this is that the cobwebs are perfectly aligned with the portal, and they don't even break the wall behind it. Feels like this stronghold wanted some extra security, so it hired the spider spawner. This is already insane, but while searching for this, Good Chemical also came across this other seed, with another spawner generating inside the portal room. However, this one isn't as impressive as it's not perfectly aligned with a portal, but something cool about this portal room is that it also has another entrance which is glitched because of the lava. And since this portal room has 2 entrances, have you ever wondered what's the most entrances that can generate to a portal room? Well, coincidentally, that's actually an anomaly we'll be talking about later in the video. In April 2022, the famous seed finder Dylan DC14 was on a hunt to find the most trapped allays at spawn. If you didn't know, allays can be trapped either in pillager outposts or in woodland mansions, and usually you may only see a couple of them at a time. However, on this seed, Dylan found so many jail cells with allays that it's literally a maximum security prison. Now the first thing you'll notice upon spawning is there's a pillager outpost with 2 allay cages. This is pretty normal, however the true strangeness of this seed lies within the mansion. Somehow there are 6 big jail rooms, each with their own cells, which house dozens of allays. By using the glowing effect, you can see just how many there are, with this whole area having 58 allays in total. And what's interesting is that one of the cages from the pillager outpost is actually open, allowing a couple of them to escape. So it looks like these 2 may be planning a prison break. Now after Dylan found this, another seed finder called CrackedMagnet took an interest in finding a seed like this but for Bedrock Edition, and it only took him a few weeks to discover this seed, which has a mansion with 58 allays as well. However, this time there's no outpost, so this seed actually holds the world record for the mansion with the most allays, but the chance of this happening is so rare that it's unlikely a mansion with any more will ever be found. In June 2025, a Reddit user by the name of King Ice was exploring the oceans of his world to find a mushroom island, but during his travels he randomly came across a giant island. As he explored, he suddenly realized that it looked like a real-life continent, and going on the world seed map, he noticed it was an almost perfect replica of Africa. This is the comparison between the two, and it's almost uncanny. Somehow this even comes with Madagascar on the side of it. Keep in mind, many players have tried to find continents in Minecraft in the past, but none of those were very accurate because of the randomness in Minecraft's terrain, so it's insane that this was even found. And the fact that this is mostly a savanna biome is fitting, because some of the world's biggest savannas can be found in Africa. Over the years, people have found many strange occurrences happening in Minecraft's end dimension. However, a seed finder by the name of Doogie8876 was recently on the hunt for abnormal exit portals. Usually you'd find the exit portal in the middle of the island, but there are ways for them to generate in weird locations. What he found was this seed, where you'll start off normally on the end platform, but when you make your way onto the island, you'll realize there's no sign of an exit portal at all. And you may be thinking this is impossible, because every end island needs an exit portal. Well, the portal isn't actually missing, but because of this single air block where the portal would usually generate, it ended up generating inside the island instead. What makes this even stranger is that when the dragon perches, it clips straight through the ground as if it's hacking. Just imagine being a new player on this seed. If you don't pay attention to where the portal is, you probably wouldn't know how to leave after beating the dragon. When you think of a Minecraft igloo, you probably imagine a little structure that generates in snowy biomes. But over the years, many strange igloos have been discovered, such as the ones that generate underground, or even the one that was found flying in the sky. And for this anomaly, we're going to be taking a look at some more one-of-a-kind igloos. So let's start with the most dangerous igloo, which was found by the expert seed finder Danduck. On this seed, you'll spawn right in front of an igloo that generated inside an ancient city. This is actually the only known igloo to ever generate generate in this biome. And if you were thinking of using it as a shelter from the warden, that's probably not a good idea because there's no secret room to escape to, meaning you're trapped here. But now let's move on to a safer igloo, which was found by a seed finder called AwesomePlayer98, and this one generated in a plains biome. The reason this happened is because of this tiny snowy slopes that generated here. And this igloo even has a basement, so at least it's better than the previous one. But now, what about the highest igloo in all of Minecraft? Well, this one was also found by DamnDuck and sits at Y level 255. Something interesting about this one is that it has a glitch trap door that leads to nowhere, making it a naturally generated death trap. In September 2025, a Reddit user by the name of Eduardo was spamming the /teleport command in his world, looking for rare locations. Though he's not a seed finder in the typical way, as he doesn't use code, according to him, he's managed to find some pretty rare things by randomly typing coordinates. On this particular day, what he came across is one of the weirdest occurrences ever found by random chance. This location has a giant hole that naturally generated along with an amethyst geode in the center. This straight up looks like a meteor crater, and feels like something you'd only see if you installed mods. This is currently the only known seed that has something like this, but aside from having a cool aesthetic, there's nothing actually valuable you can find here. And the fact that this generated hundreds of thousands of blocks away from spawn means no sane person would ever travel here just to see this. It's a well-known fact that mushroom islands generate completely surrounded by water, and in modern versions it's considered impossible for a mushroom island to be connected to another piece of land. That's because the continentalness value has to be very low in order for mushroom islands to generate, meaning there can't be any nearby land. However, have you ever wondered what's the closest that a mushroom island can get to other land? Well, the seed finder Zenith ran a search to find out, and what he discovered was this seed, where you'll find this little passage between a mushroom island and the shoreline. This is crazy because there's only 100 blocks separating them, making it the closest a mushroom island has ever been found to land. Because the continentalness value for a mushroom island to generate needs to be below minus 10,500, meanwhile normal land needs to be over minus 2,000. And usually for mushroom islands you can see that there's a gradual drop off in continentalness as the indicator slowly gets darker the deeper you go into an ocean. So for such a steep drop off to happen here, right next to the coastline, is so rare that it's never been seen before. Minecraft strongholds are randomly generated and come in all shapes and sizes, meaning that sometimes they can be insanely large or absolutely tiny. So that means somewhere in the depths of Minecraft there must be a stronghold that's the smallest of all. And over the years many players have claimed to have found the smallest one. In fact, I've even received DMs about this very topic in the past. However, the only way to truly find the smallest stronghold is through seed finding programs, rather than by manual searching. But first, what's the bare minimum rooms that strongholds are required to generate? Well, the most important part is obviously the portal room. However, the portal room also needs an entrance, so there must be at least one hallway or other room connected to it. Also, every stronghold always needs a staircase entrance as well. By the way, we're not including any strongholds with glitched world generation, because in the past it was possible for oceans to completely overwrite strongholds, leaving only the portal room. And on Bedrock Edition it was possible to have strongholds with no end portals at all. So when we're talking about the smallest ones, we mean ones that generated normally. One of the smallest strongholds with these requirements I could find online was this one, found by a deleted Reddit user, which only has the end portal, a small room, and the entrance. However, despite this having the bare minimum requirements, it's still not the smallest, because in September 2025, the seed finder TurtleKid 2022 ran a search to find the true smallest one. For context, TurtleKid is the same person who found the stronghold with the most number of fountains that we saw in the previous video, so he's an expert when it comes to stronghold generation. What he found was this seed, which has a stronghold with a portal room, hallway, but no entrance. So how is this even possible? Didn't we just say that strongholds need a staircase entrance as well? Well, this actually does have an entrance, but it was partially overwritten by the portal room. So it technically still has all the requirements for a normal stronghold, but it's the smallest smallest one possible. But now, what about the seed with the smallest 12-eye stronghold? Well, a seed finder by the name of Zenith actually searched for this, and out of all the 12-eye portals, the smallest stronghold is on this seed. This is so tiny that it's basically impossible to get lost here, since there's only one path that leads straight to the portal. And obviously this is much bigger than the previous one, but keep in mind that for a 12-eye portal to have such a small stronghold is already crazy rare, almost as rare as you subscribing. There are many strange villages that have been found in Minecraft over the years. These range from completely missing villages to the smallest one ever found. However, this time, it's about a village in very unusual circumstances. This was discovered in September 2025 by a seed finder known as Nerd Penguin. The first thing you'll notice is that this is a snowy village, which somehow generated in a desert biome. This is already weird on its own, but what makes it even more unusual is the fact that there's also a desert temple intersecting with it, creating this strange phenomenon where there's pillars of ice inside the temple. The reason this happened is because of a rare occurrence in this area which allowed a cold biome to generate right next to a hot biome, which usually wouldn't happen because of biome temperatures. So I guess we can call this global warming. In the past, we've seen many rare username anomalies, from the longest usernames to the rarest account UUIDs. However, this time it's about an unusual username with a strange story. It all started in May 2025 when a Discord user named AxolotLGuy7 sent me a list of the Minecraft usernames with the most owners. In that list were some strange names, such as the usernames SoupGod that's had 21 separate owners, and HypixelAdmin with 24 separate owners. However, at the top of the list was a username called LDShadowLady_. For some reason, this username has had 27 separate owners. And at the time of me making this video, it's actually gone up to 28 owners. And strangely, you can see the name is getting ready to drop again, meaning someone else recently changed this username and abandoned it as well. Keep in mind, you can only change your username once a month, and when you change it, it takes another 37 days for it to drop for other people to use. So that means that for over 56 months, almost the past 5 years, people have been constantly taking this username and abandoning it. This is a very unusual anomaly, as specific usernames never get dropped so often. So why does this username have so many separate owners? What is it about it that makes people want to switch to it, but then change their minds? Well, I asked AxolotLGuy, and he said he doesn't know, but he believes it's because the name is similar to a YouTuber's, but then the username owner doesn't like it anymore and switches. However, the true cause of this is unknown, and the fact that this has been going on for such a long time makes me wonder whether this is actually a coordinated effort to make this username have the most owners. The average portal room in a stronghold looks like this, with the end portal, one entrance, and iron bars. However, an uncommon occurrence that can sometimes happen are multiple entrances leading to the end portal room. We actually saw this earlier in the video during the spider stronghold, where there was an extra entrance in the portal room. However, this extra entrance isn't too rare, but since it's possible for extra hallways to lead to the end portal, I was wondering, what's the portal room with the most entrances ever found? Well, after searching across the internet, I came across this Reddit post by a user named BigBrain5Head, who back in January 2021 discovered this seed that has 4 separate entrances to the portal room. It's unknown just how rare this is, but everyone in the replies agreed that this was a never before seen occurrence. As for the theoretical limit of entrances into the end portal, it's not exactly clear what that is, but some estimates say there could be strongholds out there that have up to 8 or even 9 entrances into the portal room. But those are so rare that it's very unlikely this will ever be found by random chance. In January 2025, a YouTuber by the name of Stofix discovered a very strange location while doing seed finding. This area has a woodland mansion, which isn't too rare on its own, but you'll notice it also generated inside a mountain bowl, and somehow a pale garden also formed around this area in a ring pattern. The fact that a pale garden even generated this way is extremely abnormal, and when you approach this, it feels like you've stumbled upon a haunted house surrounded by a creepy forest. And while there isn't anything crazy inside the mansion itself, this is still a very unusual location that you'd never come across on your own. In the past, we've seen seeds with 2 jungle temples floating out in the ocean, but recently something even rarer was discovered. Imagine for a second you load into a new seed, and in front of you, you see a desert temple floating in the water. A bit weird, but as you head towards it, you suddenly notice another desert temple on the horizon that's also in the middle of the ocean. And as your render distance expands, you see yet another floating desert temple. You think this can't get crazier, but as you fly to get a better look, suddenly a 4th temple appears behind the first one. Somehow on this seed, found by the famous seed finder Fragrant Result, 4 desert temples generated in the middle of the ocean right at spawn. But it doesn't end here, because 3 of these 4 temples each have something unique about them. The temple right in front of you is located on this little sugarcane island, and when you enter the temple, you'll find a sugarcane growing without any water next to it, and this eventually breaks if you leave it for a while. Now the temple behind that one has ocean ruins that merged with a sandstone, which is very weird to look at. However, luckily you can still get to the loot. The same can't be said about the furthest temple though, because this one actually has coral that generated in the chest area, and the coral managed to overwrite one of the chests. Now the last temple is the most normal, as there's nothing unusual happening inside it, and you might be thinking that with these 4 temples you get some pretty good loot, but honestly it isn't anything special. However, the fact that they even generated this way is insane, because even having 4 temples in a normal desert is already rare, so having them in the ocean makes this a one-of-a-kind seed. It looks like there was some sort of flood that swept away the entire desert. Minecraft islands come in all shapes and sizes, from deserted islands to entire archipelagos. However, some islands are rarer than others, and for this anomaly we're going to be exploring some of the strangest and most interesting islands ever found in Minecraft. So let's start off with this seed, which spawns you on a mountainside, and in front of you you'll see a stony shore that brings you to a place known as Volcano Island. This was found in January 2024 by Fragrant Result, and it features a tropical island with large mountains in the center. And if you look at this from a distance, you can see where the island gets its name from. These giant mountains make it seem like there's a dormant volcano, and if you are curious, here's what it would look like if you put lava on it as well. There's not much else to this island other than thick jungle and some forest, but it really gives off the vibe that you're a castaway on a tropical island. Now let's move on to the second island. This one doesn't have an official name, but I'm calling it Civilization Island. This was found by the seed finder Zenith, and somehow the game managed to generate a quadruple village on this isolated island. Each of these 4 villages are separated by a vast mountain in the middle, making it seem like 4 civilizations developed separately on this island. Keep in mind, quadruple villages are already very rare on their own, but them also being on an island makes this even more unusual. So who knows, maybe someone can make a civilization video out of this. The next rare island also has no official name, but I'm calling it Monument Island. This is a tiny mushroom island that was discovered in August 2025 by Damduck. And while the island itself isn't that crazy, it happens to be surrounded by 4 ocean monuments. This is an insanely rare occurrence, and no other island has ever been found surrounded by monuments in this way before. So Damduck really went all out for this one. Now something you've probably noticed about these islands is that they were all found by seed finders using programs. But what about a rare island that a normal player randomly came across? Well, this next one is called All Cliff Island, and you can see why it's named that. This island is almost entirely covered in treacherous cliffs, and the cliffs of the island are so vertical that they almost look like glitched chunk borders. However, there is one area that has a stony shore which forms a natural staircase leading up to the island. What's even more unique about this is that the main mountain is actually hollow, with a giant cavern that leads deep underground. This is straight up some of the best world generation that's ever been found by random chance. And I think each of these islands would be very unique to have a survival challenge on. Just imagine surviving 100 days on each of these. In August 2025, the seed finder Doogie8876 posted an image to my Discord server showing a seed he had been saving from a long time ago. Now, if you teleport to this location, you'll find a woodland mansion that generated in the middle of a sinkhole. The sinkhole goes all the way down to the bottom of the world, but interestingly, the woodland mansion actually gets cut off at Y0 because of the old world depth limit for structures. However, you'll also find an ocean monument right under the mansion. This is already insane. However, you can also see this strange piece of land inside the lake. Inside this is a stronghold, but this isn't just any ordinary stronghold. You can see that it has some unusual generation, such as this corridor with 3 chests. But if you go to the portal room, you'll find that it's been sliced in half by the monument. And this area where all the structures intersect is very unique because there's a weird cobblestone formation that almost looks like it was built by hand rather than natural generation. Minecraft mansions are randomly generated and have many different rooms. These range from the secret rooms to the jails and even the chicken jockey room. However, in August 2025, a seed finder by the name of Scriptline was on the hunt for the woodland mansion with the most cat statues. Now normally woodland mansions would only have a couple of these rooms at most. However, for Scriptline that wasn't enough. And so he used code to run a search until he found this mansion which generated with 11 cat statues. It's not known just how rare this is, but it's very abnormal, and this is probably the scariest seed ever for a creeper. In August 2025, the seed finder M33 Galaxy discovered some of the rarest caves in all of Minecraft, with each of these seeds having something never before seen. So we all know that under Y level 0, the ores you find become deep slate. So iron ore becomes deep slate, diamonds become deep slate, and so on. But what's the lowest non-deep slate ores ever? Well, on this seed, you'll find a sinkhole. And if you go to the very bottom, you'll find lava. This lava pit managed to generate the lowest non-deep slate, redstone, lapis, and diamond ores at Y-63. This happened because of a rare phenomenon in this area that allowed stone to generate at the bottom of the world, when usually you'd only find deep slate. And this next seed generated the lowest non-deep slate iron ore, and this other one has the lowest non-deep slate gold ore because of similar generation. However, other than these rare ores, M33 Galaxy found some other strange things going on in other caves, such as this one which straight up generated the overworld inside an ancient city, as well as this other seed which has a mesa biome in an ancient city. And you can see that most of the ancient city is underwater here as well, which is very strange. But not as strange as this next one, because he even found a pale garden generating in an ancient city, which is probably the creepiest of them all. And the sinkhole in this one is very interesting, with a mansion overlooking it. However, the cave I find most insane is this one, which somehow generated a snowy biome at the bottom of the world. There's just something so unique about having a frozen cave in the game, and it's such a weird contrast with the river of lava that's flowing through here. M33 Galaxy said that these rare occurrences were originally found in snapshots, but luckily Mojang forgot to patch them, and now they're in a full release. In episode 11 of this series, we looked at the stronghold with the longest staircase, which was this stronghold that had 8 total sets of stairs leading to the ground floor. Honestly, I never expected that this record would ever be beaten, because finding such long strongholds is very unusual. However, recently, the seed finder nerd penguin ran a search to find a stronghold with even more stairs, and what he found was this one. The path to the bottom is much longer than the other stronghold, so I'll speed this up, but you can see how many flights of stairs it takes to actually get to the bottom. This stronghold now holds the world record for the longest staircase, with 9 stairs to the ground floor. But something else interesting about this is that this is also one of the largest strongholds I've ever seen. Now, there's no confirmed world record for the biggest stronghold, but it's extremely unusual to find one as large as this, and I'll keep you all updated in case there's ever a search for the largest one. In September 2025, a Discord user by the name of Flybacker posted a few images to the seed finding server Minecraft at Home, where he showed a village that almost seems corrupted. When walking here, the first thing you'll notice is that there's a door leading straight into an iceberg. Sadly, you can't really enter this way, but if you go into spectator mode, you'll find that within this iceberg there are villager houses lodged deep in the ice, as if they were hit by an avalanche. It's a very weird sight, and behind this iceberg there's a lone villager house which is separated from the rest of the village. And I don't know what it is about this house, but it's got a very mystical aura around it. Maybe it's the fireflies. This whole area is very mysterious, and this occurrence is something you'll probably never come across on your own. In August 2025, a Minecraft player called DarryGamer13 was making his way to the end portal when he realized that he had just discovered a very unusual stronghold. Now, we've seen plenty of strange strongholds in the past, but this time it's not about something you'd expect. On this seed, there's no rare portal room, the stronghold isn't located in a weird area, and everything seems completely normal. That is, until you make your way to this hallway. If you're a normal player, you probably wouldn't think too much of it. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice that for some reason, this hallway generated with 4 torches. This is actually the most torches ever found in one hallway. And I wouldn't say that this is the rarest thing in the world, but it's definitely an anomaly. And since strongholds are random, it's not known what the limit is for the most torches in a hallway. For all we know, there could be a stronghold out there that has a long corridor with dozens of torches. But the chances of coming across something like this are so improbable that it would be near impossible to find without seed finding. In September 2025, a Discord user named Vokidoki joined the Minecraft at Home Discord server to share a screenshot of a very rare occurrence they found while playing in their world. By going out to this location, you'll find a trial chamber that's merged with a stronghold. Now normally this wouldn't be too crazy, but the details of this are absolutely insane. For example, you can see there's parts of the stronghold hanging by the trial chamber chains, making it look like it's a single structure. There's even staircases from the stronghold that lead straight into the trial chamber, and the end portal itself is perfectly aligned with the trial chamber room. This feels like an almost perfect merge between the structures, especially when you consider that most structure mergers are a complete mess. So let me know which one you like most, this one or the ancient city merge with a stronghold. In June 2024, the seed finder Fragrant Result came across a village with a single house. However, what's weird about this is that there's no villagers here whatsoever. I don't know what it is about this village, but it's very aesthetic since the single house is located in this sunlit cave, and the only residents here are the Iron Golem and some cats. This is just a very lonely village, and it's kind of sad that the Iron Golem is defending this place for nothing, and will eventually be killed by the mobs. Maybe there's some sort of deeper meaning to this village, but who knows. In August 2025, the seed finder Xime posted a screenshot of an unusual stronghold library to the Minecraft at Home Discord server. For some reason, this library is being completely cut in half. And if you're thinking this is from a chunk border, you'd be wrong, as this is actually in the middle of a chunk. When I first saw this, it reminded me of Keima's original surface stronghold for version 1.0, which if you remember also had a cut-off library, but back then I thought that was a one-off glitch because of the surface stronghold. But it turns out this is actually a rare glitch that's been spotted throughout the years. And as I did some more research, I was able to uncover even more seeds like this throughout the internet, such as this one where the library is glitched into the wall, with only a small part of it generating. So what's actually happening here? Well, a seed finder by the name of Meox told Xime the reason for this has to do with a population chunk border, which are like normal chunk borders but are invisible, and affect the game in different ways. And we've actually talked about these in the past if you remember, such as that time a 12-eye portal didn't generate because of the population chunk. However, whether this is actually what's happening in this case is a mystery, as to my knowledge there hasn't been a sighting of this on modern versions. So either it was fixed or it was something else that causes it entirely. And that's all for now. If you want to watch the previous videos, you can click on screen now. And I'll see you next time. Bye!